Hi friends! So the last thing we're going to talk about are the sources of social change and the resistance to that change. If there's one thing that we know about culture is that it is constantly changing. Change always happens. You see this now more than ever. The rate of change varies. So it's been estimated by some that we have seen more cultural change in the last 20 years than the previous 100 years. There are 6 factors that can independently or together stimulate cultural change. These do not always work independently. They can work independently. More often, they work together. So one of the reasons for cultural change is whenever we have a change in beliefs or values. This has far-reaching consequences as far as change in culture is concerned. It's also one of the least likely reasons because it's such a fundamental mind shift, and it does have such far-reaching consequences. Generally, when we talk about values and beliefs, we speak of ideologies. Ideology is a system of beliefs or ideas that justify social, moral, religious, political, or economic interests held by a certain group or society. Most of the time, changes in ideologies are intentional. They are driven by social movements. Social movements are long-term efforts to promote or prevent social change. So usually these involve large numbers of people. Some examples from our history would include things like prohibition, women's rights movement, civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the environmentalist movement. You could even look right now at like Black Lives Matter as being an example of a social movement. Generally, any social movement that is for change, there's also one that is out there saying like, no, we don't want this to change either. But like, for example, with the civil rights movement, that was a very prominent movement within our history that drastically changed the way that we believed about other people. A more common reason for change is changes in technology. Technology, if you remember, is not just the tools that we use to manipulate our environment, it's the knowledge and the rules that we use for them as well. Generally speaking, changes into technology result from either discovery or invention. Discovery is the process of learning about something that you previously unknown or unrecognized, and it's usually the result of scientific research. Invention is the process of reshaping existing cultural items into some type of new form. Technology and changes in technology drive a lot of the change that we see today. We can also see changes because of changes in the population. A change in population size can and will lead to cultural change. Different populations bring with them different cultural practices. A growing population has an impact on the economy because we need more jobs. We have more demand. The opposite is true also. However, the more jobs or the more people we have, also higher crime rates we have, greater strain on resources. The age of the population also plays a role. The more people we have that we classify as being older means that we need more assisted living facilities. If we have more schools, or more kids, we need things like more schools. Recently around here, there's been a significant uptake in the number of comfort keeper services that are out there. This is because we do have such an aging population. As that population eventually dies off, for lack of a better word, you're not going to need those types of services as much. Another reason for change is diffusion. Diffusion is done constantly today because of our advances in technology. It's the process of spreading cultural traits from one society to another. No society, not even North Korea, lives in isolation anymore. We all have an impact on others. We all see with technology what other countries and other societies are doing, and we learn from them. There's a difference though, like material culture, those things that are physical, and technology has a tendency to diffuse faster and be accepted more readily than changes in ideas and beliefs. I told you that the United States is a major exporter of pop culture. Well, within that pop culture, within our movies, are our own ideologies and beliefs, and sometimes that material is not readily accepted elsewhere around the world. Even when you borrow ideas from another culture, they're usually reformulated. This is whenever you borrow things, but you change them to suit your particular pre-existing culture. Like, for example, The taco that you get here in the United States is not going to be the same type of taco that you get in Mexico City. We've Americanized the taco. We've reformulated the taco. And you also have to remember, diffusion is always a two-way street. It's not just one society impacting another. They are mutually impacting each other. Another reason for cultural change is the actual physical environment. We don't see this as much anymore because of technological advances, but the actual physical environment of a country or society can either encourage or discourage cultural change. There's no surprise that we saw like the Renaissance occur in Italy. Why? Because it was a major port for people from around the world, so they were getting those ideas from other places constantly. Societies that are more isolated, like you have isolated societies within the Amazon, don't encourage or don't encounter other people, so therefore their physical environment like limits their interactions, therefore limits the amount of change that they have. And finally, wars and conquests. Wars and conquests can bring about the greatest amount of change in the shortest period of time. It's not as common today as it has been in the past. It changes not only like the physical environment, like war flat out changes the topography of your land, but it also causes advances in technology, advances in medicine, it impacts the economy. And in the past, when you were defeated, you had to take on the ideologies of the winning faction. That, again, isn't as common anymore. So change is always happening, but so is resistance to that change. Very rarely does change occur without some type of opposition. So why do we oppose change? There's three major reasons. The first is ethnocentrism. If you remember, ethnocentrism is that belief that your society is the best, and the way that you do things is the best way in which to do them. So change that is brought to you from the outside, from other societies, usually faces the most resistance. This can be a negative thing because someone else might actually be doing it better than the way that you are. Like, extreme ethnocentrism can prevent you from making changes that would be beneficial to your society. For example, back in the 1980s, there was this huge push to buy American, especially with American-made automobiles. But in the 1980s, the American-made automobiles were substandard in comparison to foreign-made automobiles. Now they're not anymore. Just want to make that clear. But, this resistance to buy foreign automobiles was pushing us to purchase less efficient and less quality product. It worked to our disadvantage. Another reason for resistance to change is cultural lag. Cultural lag happens whenever you have a difference in the rate of changes when it comes to cultural traits. So I told you, like, material culture changes faster than non-material culture. So there's oftentimes a gap between technical developments of a society and its moral and legal implications and institutions. So, for example, we had the ability to download music before we had laws that said, no, you can't download music. And then by the time we passed those laws, people had been used to downloading music and they, didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. Another example would be the traditional school year. Why do we stop going to school at beginning of June through like the end of August? Well, in the past it was so that kids could go and help on the farm. I sincerely doubt any of you are going to help on the farm right now. We know that there is, a loss of learning that occurs in that time period. It would make more sense in today's society to do year-round schooling. Not that we would go to school more than we do now, but rather than having this huge summer break, we would have more frequent breaks. Like you would break for like 3 weeks over Christmas or 3 weeks in the spring, things like that. Just something to think about. Don't get all worked up. We're not moving there anytime soon. And the final reason for resistance to change is vested interests. Change brings about uncertainty. Things may not be great, but at least we know what to expect, and there's a certain amount of security that comes with that. So a lot of times we resist change because we're afraid of what that change may mean. Also, there's always someone who is benefiting from the way things are done now. So if you're into conspiracy theories or anything like that, some people argue that there are certain diseases out there right now, like diabetes or some forms of cancer or whatever, that could ultimately be cured, that we have the knowledge and technology to do that now, but that the pharmaceutical industry makes more money off of maintenance than they would off of curing it. There are some who argue, again, conspiracy theory, that we have much more environmentally friendly solutions to gas burning engines, oil burning engines, but that, you know, if you're BP, Exxon, etc., billion-dollar companies, do you really want us to find an alternative source? Again, I am not saying that those are accurate or inaccurate. I'm just throwing them out there as examples. Okay, so this is it for the unit on culture. And the next time we meet, I will give you your final assignment for the year. And it's fun. I think you'll have a good time with it. I miss you, and I hope I get to see you soon.